He set the gold pen on the table and turned it so the point faced me. The way you hand someone a knife and call it a gift. Sign, Vivian. Blood pays its debts. 11 years I ran that family's business. The books, the payroll, the front counter, the back office, the calls, nobody else wanted to take. 11 years, and not once was I handed a paycheck. Here is what my father did not know that night. My name was already on a promissory note at a bank across town. It was already on a deed at the county recorder. It was already on an amendment to the family trust, and I had signed none of them. I left through the side door at 11:40 p.m. with my daughter asleep on my shoulder and a green ledger under my arm. Today, I rebuild financial fraud for a living. I am a forensic accountant. I read the lies people write in other people's names, and I prove who held the pen. Last winter, I finally read the 3 lies they wrote in mine, page by page, dollar by dollar, and I made every stolen year cost them, lawfully to the cent. My name is Vivian Marsh. I am 41 years old. If you have ever been the one your family counted on for everything and counted as nothing, stay with me. The most honest number in that house was about to become the thing that set me free. Let me take you to the night it broke, because you need to see it the way I still see it. It was April 12, 2017. My daughter Nora turned 8. That day, we held the party at my parents' house on Latimer Street, the house I had repainted twice and re-roofed once, the house where I answered the company phone from a desk in the back bedroom, because my father said a real family business does not pay for an office, it can run from a spare room. There were maybe 20 people in that dining room. My brother Glenn, who is the and Sons in Marsh and Sons, flooring even though there is only one son and I did most of the work. His wife, there are 2 boys, aunts, a neighbor, the pastor's wife, my mother, Coralie, in the green cardigan she wore when she wanted to look soft. My father, Hal, at the head of the table where he always sat, even at a child's birthday. After the cake, my mother brought out the envelopes. Every year, the grandchildren got an envelope, a savings bond, usually $50, sometimes $100. The boys tore theirs open first and held the bonds up, and everyone clapped. Then my mother slid the last envelope across the table to Nora. It was thicker than the others. Nora is a careful child. She opened it slowly, the way she opens everything, like the thing inside might be alive. It was not a savings bond. It was an invoice, 3 pages, printed on the company letterhead I had designed myself, itemized, room, board, utility, care and raising of Nora Marsh from birth. And at the bottom, a number my father had clearly typed himself, because he typed with 2 fingers and left a double space before every total. $216,000, 18 years at $12,000 a year, he had written. He had charged my 8-year-old for 10 years. She had not yet lived. My daughter did not understand the number. She understood the laughter, because my father stood up and he read the total out loud in his Sunday voice. And he said, "We are not running a charity, sweetheart. In this family, everybody pays their way." And the room laughed. Not all of them, but enough. My brother laughed. My mother smiled into her tea. The pastor's wife covered her mouth, and I will never know if that was a gasp or a giggle. And I have decided it does not matter. Nora looked at me across the table to find out whether to cry. If you have a child, you know that look. They check your face to learn what just happened to them. I gave her the only thing I had. I smiled and I said, "It is a joke, baby. Grandpa's just being silly." And she believed me because she was 8. And because I have always been a very good liar in the moments that count. That was the public humiliation. The grandparents cheered it. My brother cheered it. And I drove my daughter home and tucked her in and told her she was the best gift the world ever gave me. By morning, they had done the rest. Stay with me. This is where it stops being a sad story and starts being a record. I came back the next morning to quit. That was the plan. Walk in, set down my keys, take Nora's school folder out of the back bedroom, and never run another payroll for a man who billed a child for being born. My father was waiting with the gold pen. The kitchen table was covered in paper. He had laid it out like a closing. My mother stood at the counter with her green ledger open, the notebook she had kept my whole life, the one where she wrote down everything I owed. Rise, she gave me in high school, the deposit on my first apartment that she loaned me, and I paid back twice. The cost of my own childhood, line by line, in her tidy hand. We have been generous long enough, my father said. You are going to make this, right? The papers were a personal guarantee. He wanted my signature, making me responsible for the business debts. He wanted my name on the loan he had taken to buy a delivery truck. He wanted, as it turned out, my name on a great many things. I said no. I want you to hear how small that word is and how long it took me to say it. 34 years, 11 of them at that desk in the back bedroom. I said no, and my father slid the pen 1 inch closer. And my mother said, without looking up from the green book, Blood pays its debts, Vivian. I picked up my daughter's school folder. I picked up the green ledger off the counter because some animal part of me knew I would need it. And I walked out the side door into the cold, and I drove away, and I thought that was the end of it. It was not the end of it. It was the morning they decided that if I would not sign, they would sign for me. The promissory note at the bank is dated April 13th, 2017. The quitclaim deed transferring the Latimer Street house from my mother to my brother is dated April 13th, 2017. The trust amendment removing my daughter and me as beneficiaries is dated April 13th, 2017. I was not in that bank. I was not at that recorder's office. On April 13th, 2017, I was sitting in a parked car outside a temp agency with 11 years of unpaid work and no reference, trying to figure out how to feed a child. They put my name on 3 documents. The very morning I refused to give it to them. And then they went on with their lives. Certain I would never read a single page. Let me tell you who taught me to read the pages, because I did not learn it from a school. I learned it from a woman named Gloria Mata, and I have remembered one sentence of hers every day for 7 years. The temp agency sent me to a cleaning crew. We did office buildings downtown overnight because nobody wants to be seen cleaning the building they cannot afford to work in. $9 an hour, 6 nights a week, 6 hours a night, $324 a week before the agency took its cut. I worked the 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. shift so I could get Nora to school, sleep 4 hours, and pick her up. Gloria ran the crew. She was 61, built like a fire hydrant, and she had a way of looking at a person that made you feel X-rayed and forgiven at the same time. One night, on a break in a marble lobby that cost more than my entire childhood, I showed her the invoice. I still carried it. I do not fully know why. She read all 3 pages slowly in the light of a vending machine, and then she folded it back into its creases, the way you fold something you respect even though you hate it. Honey, she said, anybody can keep a list of what you owe them. She handed the invoice back to me. Takes a real one to write down what they owe you. That is all, she said. She did not tell me to get a lawyer. She did not tell me it would be okay. She picked up her card and went back to work. And I stood in that lobby with a piece of paper in my hand. And something in my chest turned over like an engine catching in the coal. That night, I bought a notebook, not green, black. And I started writing down what they owed me. If you have ever been handed a list of your debts by people who never paid theirs, type the word ledger in the comments. I read them. I read all of them. You're not the only one who got an invoice instead of a birthday. And I want you to see how many of you there are. Now, here is the part most stories drag out for 10 minutes. And I am not going to do that to you because you already know I survived. You can hear it in my voice. So let me give you the years between in the time it takes to actually live a hard year, which is to say, fast and without ceremony. I cleaned offices at night and took accounting at the community college during the day. I failed a class the first semester because I fell asleep at my own kitchen table and missed the final, and I retook it and got the highest grade in the section. I learned to read a balance sheet the way I had once read my mother's face. I learned that numbers do not lie, but people make them. I got my associates, then my bachelor's at night, over 5 years, while other people my age were buying second homes. Nora grew. She got tall. She got funny. She stopped checking my face to find out how to feel, which is the whole job, really. We lived in a one bedroom where she got the bedroom and I got a fold out. And I told her the fold out was my favorite bed in the world, and that was a lie. And it was also somehow true. I passed the certified public accountant exam in 2021. 2023, I earned my certification as a forensic accountant, which is a long way of saying I became the person institutions call when the money does not match the story the money is supposed to tell. I learned to trace a dollar through 6 accounts and find the hand that moved it. I learned to read a signature, a date stamp, a notary log. I learned that the truth is almost always already written down somewhere by the very person trying to hide it. I did not think about Latimer Street much in those years. I told myself I had no time. That was the convenient version. The true version is that I was afraid that if I looked, I would find nothing. And then the thing they did would just be a feeling I could never prove. And I had spent enough of my life with feelings I could not prove. Then last fall, I tried to buy us a house. Stay with me. That ordinary errand is where the whole thing detonated. It was a small house, 2 bedrooms, a yard the size of a parking space on the unfashionable side of a city 200 miles from Latimer Street. After 16 years of fold out couches, I had a down payment and a credit score and a daughter about to start applying to colleges. And I wanted her to come home from her first semester to a door that was ours. The lender ran a title search. Standard. They also ran my name against public records and liens, also standard. And the loan officer called me on a Tuesday afternoon, October 15th, 2024, at 4:10 p.m., and asked me in the careful voice people use when they think you might be a criminal, why I had defaulted on a $60,000 business note in 2017. I did not default on a $60,000 business note in 2017. In 2017, I was cleaning a marble lobby for $9 an hour. Send me the document, I said. He sent me the document. And I sat in my car in a grocery store parking lot and opened a PDF on my phone. And there it was, a promissory note. Marsh and Sons Flooring as the business. My father as guarantor. And as co-borrower in a signature that leaned right, where mine leans left, in a hand that crossed its sevens. Because I have never once in my life crossed a seven Vivian Marsh. $985 a month, 60 months, $59,100. Charged off in 2019 when the business stopped paying, and sitting on my credit like a stain I had never seen because I had spent those years too poor to ever apply for a credit that would have shown it to me. Most people finding their name on a forged note feel violated. I felt something colder and much more useful. I felt the click of a problem becoming a case. Because, you see, this is the one thing my family never understood about what they did to me. They forged the signature of the one person in the family who would grow up to do this for a living. They wrote their lie in the handwriting of a woman who reads handwriting for the court. They handed me the evidence 11 years before I knew how to read it. And now I knew how to read it. I did not call them. I want you to notice that I never once called them. I opened a file. The black notebook had become a career, and the career now had a folder with my own family's name on the tab. And I worked it the way I would work any matter that crossed my desk, cleanly, by the procedure, because here is the thing I had learned that they had not. You do not beat people like my father by screaming. You beat them by being so correct that the system itself turns around and does the screaming for you. First, the note. I pulled the full loan file from the bank under my rights as the named borrower. A forged signature still makes you a named party, which gives you the right to every page. The note had been notarized. The notary's name was stamped at the bottom with a commission number and an expiration date. The notary had stamped the document April 13th, 2017. The notary's commission had expired in February 2017. The stamp was already dead 2 months before it touched my forged name. You do not understand how rare a clean gift that is until you have looked for one for 16 years. A notarization performed on an expired commission is void on its face. It does not require my word against theirs. It requires a calendar. Second, the deed. I ordered the recorded copy of the Latimer Street quitclaim from the county recorder, $8. Paid online, the most satisfying $8 of my life. The same dead notary stamp. The same April 13th date. My signature supposedly witnessed on a transfer I was 200 miles and one lifetime away from. Third, the trust. This one I almost missed. The amendment to the Marsh Family Living Trust. The one that wrote my daughter out used a different notary, a real one with a live commission. But the amendment referenced the deed as already completed, the family residence having been conveyed to Glen Marsh. And it was dated April 13th, the same morning, which meant the trust document, signed by my parents, admitted in writing that they knew the house had been transferred on the same day by the same dead stamp in the same room. They had documented their own coordination. They had, in their hurry to cut out an 8-year-old, signed a confession, 3 documents, one dead notary stamped doing the work on 2 of them, a handwriting that crossed its sevens, and a paper trail that proved they all happened in one orchestrated morning. The morning after I said no, I laid the 3 documents side by side on my kitchen table, the same table where I had once smiled at my daughter and told her it was a joke. And I will be honest with you about the only time I cried in this entire story, because the rules of being a person who survives this require that you account for your own tears. I did not cry then. I will tell you when I cried. Stay with me. It comes later, and it is not where you think. Here is where you have to trust that I did not cut a single corner, because the whole verdict depends on it. I did not, for 1 second, use my professional position to investigate my own family. That would have been a conflict of interest, and it would have handed them the only escape they could ever have had, which is to make me the one who broke a rule. The villains in this kind of story always pray that you will break a rule, so they can talk about your rule instead of their crime. I gave them nothing. I did everything as a private citizen and a forged victim, which is exactly what I was. I retained an independent certified document examiner, a man with 30 years of court testimony behind him, and I gave him known samples of my real signature and the 3 forged ones blind without telling him whose family this was. He came back with a written opinion. The questioned signatures were not written by the same hand that produced the known samples. The 7s, he noted, were crossed in the forgeries and uncrossed in every genuine sample over a 20-year span. I filed a police report for forgery and identity theft with the examiner's report attached. I filed an affidavit of forgery with the bank's fraud department. The formal sworn statement that says, under penalty of perjury, this is not my signature. I filed a dispute with all 3 credit bureaus with the police report number attached, which under the law obligates them to investigate. And then I did the one thing my family had spent 11 years training me to do without ever guessing what they were training me for. I waited and I let the paperwork run downhill, and I did not say a word. I signed the affidavit of forgery at the county recorder's office at the public counter, with a cheap county pen chained to the desk so nobody can steal it, a plastic pen on the little metal chain. I thought about the gold pen. My father turned toward me like a knife, and I signed my real name with my real on cross 7, with a pen that belonged to no one and to everyone. And I pressed down a little harder than I needed to. That is the first time the gold pen lost. The consequences came the way water comes, through a crackdown, slowly, then all at once, and you cannot put any of it back. The bank's fraud department completed its investigation on December 9th, 2024. They issued a written finding. The signature on the note was determined to be fraudulent. The notarization was determined to be void, the commission having expired prior to the execution date. The note was rescinded as to Vivian Marsh. The charged off balance of $59,100 was removed from my credit entirely, and the bank's recovery unit reassigned the full obligation to the parties who actually signed and benefited. Hal Marsh, guarantor, and Glenn Marsh, who had been driving the delivery truck the note had bought for 7 years. The debt did not disappear. It went home. It went to the men who made it. Read that twice, because it is the whole sermon. They did not get away with it and walk free. The bill they forged onto me became a bill they now owed themselves, with 7 years of interest and a fraud finding in the file with their names on it. The county recorder accepted my affidavit of forgery and recorded a notice of fraudulent conveyance against the Latimer Street deed. The chain of title to my mother's house now carries a permanent public record that the 2017 transfer was executed by forgery and a void notarization. My brother cannot sell that house clean. He cannot borrow against it clean. Every title company that ever runs that address will read in the official record what they did. The house they stole on paper became a house no one can quietly profit from forever. And the notary, the dead stamp. I reported the notarization to the state commissioning authority. A notary who stamps documents on an expired commission has committed an act the state takes very seriously, because the entire system of deeds and notes rests on that little stamp, meaning something. The state opened an investigation. It turned out the notary was a longtime friend of my father's who ran a tax office 2 doors down from the flooring showroom. His ability to ever notarize again is gone, and his statement to the investigators trying to save himself described who handed him the documents and where and when. That is three visible factual public consequences, each one delivered in the flat language of an institution, each one landing on the people who earned it. I did not raise my voice once. The system raised it for me. If quiet stories like this one are the reason you are here, the kind where nobody screams and everybody pays, then you already know what the button under this video does. I will not interrupt myself to ask. I will just keep going because the best part is still coming. I gave them the news the way they gave it to my daughter, in an envelope. I did not call. I did not show up. I prepared a single packet, the fraud funding, the recorded notice against the deed, the credit bureau corrections, the examiner's report, a 1-page cover letter numbered no adjectives, the kind of letter I have written 100 times for clients who needed the facts to do the talking. It read in numbered statements. 1. The promissory note dated April 13th, 2017, bearing my name has been determined to be fraudulent. The obligation has been reassigned to the actual signatories. 2. The notarization on that note and on the Latimer Street quitclaim deed was performed on a commission that expired in February 2017 and is void. 3. A notice of fraudulent conveyance has been recorded against the Latimer Street property. 4. A report has been filed with the state regarding the notarization. 5. I am not seeking contact, an apology, or repayment to me. I am informing you of what the record now says because you will be hearing from others, and I did not want you to hear it from strangers first. I sealed it in a certified envelope, the kind that makes the recipient sign to receive it, and I sent it to Latimer Street. My mother's signature is on the delivery receipt. After a lifetime of forging mine, she signed for the truth in her own hand. That is the envelope returned. The vessel they used to humiliate my child carried this time only facts. They reacted exactly the way people react when the floor finally tilts under them, which is to say, loudly and with no apology in any of it. My mother called 11 times in 2 days. I did not answer. She left voicemails. The first was furious. The fourth was tearful. The seventh said the words, "After everything we did for you." And I almost laughed because she had finally accidentally told the truth. They had done everything to me. The 11th said, "Blood pays its debts, Vivian," in the same flat voice she had used at the kitchen table. And I saved that one. I keep it. It is the only voicemail I have ever kept. My brother sent emails, long ones, no paragraph breaks, the email equivalent of a man pacing a room. He said, "I was tearing the family apart." He said, "Our parents were old." He said the note was basically mine anyway, because I had lived off the business for years, which I had not, because the business had lived off me for years. And the difference between those two sentences is the entire difference between a son and a forgery. He said near the end of the longest one that I should be ashamed of what I was doing to people who loved me. I wrote back one line. I have it memorized because I wrote it slowly and meant every word. "You did not love me. You billed me." There is a difference, and the difference is recorded at the county. Now, I did not write again. He did. I did not read them. Some doors you close so quietly that the other person never hears the latch, and that quiet is the loudest thing you will ever do. My father did not call at all. My father has never once in his life been the one to make the call. That admits he needs something. He sent 3 weeks later, through a lawyer, an offer to resolve all matters amicably, which is what people say when the record has already resolved the matters. And they are hoping you do not know it. My lawyer sent back a single sentence, declining, and we never heard from his again. If you have ever finally stopped explaining yourself to people who were never confused, only cruel, the strange grief of it. The phone goes quiet and you realize the noise was never connection. It was just billing. Now I will tell you when I cried. I promised you and I keep my promises because that is the entire difference between me and them. It was not in the bank or the recorder's office or reading the fraud finding. It was December 11th, 2024, 2 p.m. in the parking lot of the county recorder's office after I had recorded the notice against the house and walked back to my car and sat down and put my hands on the wheel. I cried because of something small. While I was at the counter, I had pulled out of habit the old green ledger from my bag, my mother's notebook, the one I took the night I left. I had carried it for 7 years and never once opened past the page. I left it on, and sitting in that car, I opened it to the very back, to the pages my mother never filled. On the last page, in pencil, in a child's handwriting, was a list. Nora had found the ledger at some point in those years, and being 8, then 9, then 10, had used the empty back pages the way children use any blank paper. And she had written in the careful hand she gets from me a list titled, "Things Mom is Good At." It went on for 2 pages. "Making the cold not scary, pancakes. Fixing my braid even when she is tired. Telling the truth, not crying when sad things happen." My mother kept a ledger of what I owed. My daughter kept a ledger of what I was worth. They were in the same notebook, back to back, in the same green book. And I had been carrying both for 7 years without knowing the second one existed. That is when I cried alone in a parked car with both ledgers open in my lap. Not for what they did, for what she saw, for the fact that the most honest accounting of my life had been done in pencil, by a child who used the back of the book her grandmother used to count my debts. Then I closed the green book and I drove home, and I did not cry again. I did not get my family back, and I want to be honest with you that I never tried to. There was no reunion, no tearful Christmas, no old man at the hospital bedside, saying the thing he should have said 40 years ago. That is the lie. Those stories tell you that the people who build your childhood will one day hand you a refund made of love. They will not. My parents are exactly who they were, only older and quieter and short $59,100 and one house they can no longer sell clean. What I got was smaller and truer. I got my name back off a note I never signed, off a credit report that had been quietly calling me a deadbeat. For years, I got a house with a door that is ours, 200 miles from Latimer Street, in my real name with my uncrossed 7. I got the quiet phone. I got the fold-out couch into a guest room and a real bed for the first time in 16 years. And I am embarrassed to tell you how long I sat on the edge of it the first night just to feel that it held. And I got one thread back that I did not expect. My Aunt Raina, my mother's younger sister, the one who covered her mouth at the birthday party and whom I had always counted among the laughers, sent me a letter after the certified envelope went around the family. A real letter, handwritten. She wrote that she had not laughed that night. She wrote that she had been covering her mouth so she would not be sick, and that she had driven home and been ashamed of her silence for 7 years, and that she had a shoebox. In the shoebox were photographs of the back bedroom desk, of me at it at midnight, year after year, that she had taken quietly because some part of her had always known a record would someday matter. She had been keeping her own evidence the whole time out of love, the way Gloria said a real one does. I did not need the photographs. The case was already closed, but I keep the shoebox next to the green book, and that is the one human thread I salvaged, and it is enough. You do not need the whole family to come back. You need one person to tell you that you did not imagine it. Rena was mine. Nora is 16. Now, she knows the whole story, the real version, because I decided years ago I would never again smile at her and call her cruelty a joke. She asked me once if I was sorry. I did it. I told her I was not sorry and that there is a difference between revenge and a record, and that I had only ever wanted the second one. She asked me what the difference was. I told her revenge is something you do to them. A record is something you do to the truth. Revenge needs them to suffer to feel complete. A record is complete the moment it is filed, whether they ever suffer or not. I never needed my father to suffer. I needed the county to know the truth, and now it does. And it will outlive all of us in a drawer in his handwriting and mine. She thought about that for a long time. Then she said, "So you didn't get them back. You got the truth back. That is my daughter. That is the entire inheritance I ever wanted to leave her. And she already has it, and no one can forge it." I started by telling you my mother's phrase, the one she said over the green ledger, the one she left on my 11th voicemail. Blood pays its debts. She meant it as a chain. She meant it the way my father turned the gold pen toward me. Point first, a thing that looks like a gift and cuts like a bill. So let me give it back to you reversed, the way I gave it back to them, and then I will let you go. Blood paid its debts. Every dollar of that 59,100. The full weight of a forged note and a stolen house and a stamp that died in February and lied in April. It all came due and it all got paid. I just made sure at long last that the right blood signed for it. My mother kept a ledger of what I owed. My daughter kept a ledger of what I was worth. They are still in the same green notebook, back to back, and I have stopped reading the front. I only read the back now. Making the cold, not scary, telling the truth, not crying when sad things happen. I broke that last one once in a parking lot. with both ledgers open in my lap, I think she would allow me the exception. If you have ever been handed a bill for being loved, if your family ever wrote your worth in the negative and dared you to argue, I want you to do one thing tonight. Find the back pages, the empty ones behind everything they counted against you. Somewhere in your life, there is a record in someone's hand or your own of what you are actually worth. Open to that page. Read it until you believe it. Then pick up a pen that belongs to no one but you and write the rest yourself. My name is Vivian Marsh. I read signatures for a living, and I finally read the ones they faked in mine. The most honest number in that house turned out to be a list in pencil on the back of a debt in the hand of a child who was watching me the whole time. Blood pays its debts. I made sure of it. And then I went home to the only person who ever wrote me down in the positive. And I made pancakes because it is on the list. And the list is the only ledger I keep now.